The procedures are in place, and they are going to continue to move those in a facilitated way. Yeah. The handoff to the Ukrainian forces has been in place for a while, so we know where to go, where to hand them off, and then there's some immediate training as necessary. On the Russian side, as Dr. O'Brien indicated, look, they may have numbers, but it's all about readiness levels. They are taking units and they are cobbling them together to be prepared to engage. And as he said, they're staying very, very close to their logistics because they've demonstrated that when they separate themselves from their logistics lines, even though they have interior lines at this point in the Donbass, they really get slaughtered by the Ukrainians in a whole bunch of very creative ways. So it's a matter of Ukrainian readiness, Ukrainian capabilities, vis-a-vis what the Russians are capable of doing and not being able to do.
So, Professor O'Brien, it is clear from what President Biden is saying that he does not at this moment take the very loud and clear and now repeated Russian threats of nuclear action from the foreign minister, from Putin himself, from television hosts who are, puppets of the government. He doesn't take that seriously right now. The U.S. government doesn't. I've heard that from a former Secretary of Defense. They believe that is saber rattling. Do you think that that's right?
Well, it certainly is astonishing because Russian language has become apocalyptic in the last few days. I mean, Russian TV, Russian government have been talking about nuclear war as a likelihood. They never did that during the Cold War. The Soviet Union didn't talk about that. So the Russian language has really become quite frightening. And what's interesting is when they do that, the Biden administration said, we're going to make a historic package of military weapons to Ukraine. Deal with it. So one hopes that they have pretty good intelligence that the Russian government is saber rattling, but it's a sign of their confidence. And it's also a sign that they believe that Russian forces in Ukraine are not in the best of shape. And the more you can get to Ukraine, the more that you will give the Ukrainians a chance to get a very positive result.
Thank you both.
Can I
go ahead.
Jump on that very quickly? Exactly what Dr. O'Brien said is, if the Russian forces do not achieve success now in the Donbass, you now increase the risk of the likelihood of the use of a theater-level nuke, because Putin is not going to accept that defeat, and theater-level nukes are part of his arrows in the quiver, as opposed to how we view the use of nukes.
Right. We're talking theater-level tactical nukes, and I know they have more than 2,000 even of those tactical warheads. Thank you both very much. And next, the Russians are fighting a war with defective tanks. Turrets are exploding and sometimes flying multiple stories high. It's been called the jack-in-the-box effect, and it has had deadly consequences on the equipment and on the troop toll. Plus, Biden vowing to tighten the grip on oligarchs. But are the sanctions having any impact on Putin? And is the United States even targeting the right people for that to occur? Also tonight, the governor of Texas making a political point by busing all those migrants to Washington. He's also added detailed inspections of trucks at the border. Is it working?
I wish, he would sit down and reconsider what he's doing. I think it hurts the Republican Party.
Art is an universal language that inspires people to make a difference and to think about the situation. It doesn't only touch their mind, it touches their soul. My name is Audrey Decker, and I am the co-founder of Street Art for Mankind. Today, there are 152 million children, 1 child out of 10, who is suffering from child labor. Street Art for Mankind is a non-profit organization that believe in art for social change. And that's what we do with big murals made by artists from all around the world. We started Street Art for Mankind around the fight against child labor and trafficking. And we have a series of murals in the financial district of New York, which are called the Freedom Murals. We also have a billboard campaign that we did, and that's called the Free Children Campaign. And this one we did with the street artists, but also with people who are really involved in the cause, such as Ashley Judd, Mira Sorvino, Kailash Satyarthi, Siddharth Kara, and also Nick Kristof. Our dream for Street Art for Mankind is really to create outdoor museums everywhere around the world to have this capacity to inspire people and create art.
แล้วก็เลือกเป้ายิงเลยมาถึงนาที69คิดฉีได้ลูก2นะครับจากจังหวะหม่งซ้ำจังหวะนี้นาที69เดยันดัมยานวิชทำให้ทีมขึ้นนำ 2-1 แต่ว่าเชียงรายมาตีเสมอนาที78ครับจากสราวุธอินแป้นเปิดบอลแน่นมาก
Frontex says it's not its mandate to investigate, but of course Frontex always gets its mandate from somewhere, anywhere, anyway. So where is this agency getting its orders from, do we know?
We do not know. What we can say from reporting on that matter for a long time now, I think it's a holistic question, right? Frontex gets its mandate from the European countries and also from the European Commission and from the EU member states. So I think the question is actually what have we made of Frontex? What is actually its real mandate? And I think it's a question that's coming over and over, whether it's on the Olaf investigation that you mentioned, the Brussels anti-fraud watchdog, or it's on this investigation. And the question we need to ask ourselves is for how long do we want to witness those pictures, actually quite shocking ones, as you say, and actually letting the agency say it's not its mandate to investigate or to do anything about that.
All right, well, Thomas Statius, thank you for posing those questions. Thomas is a journalist working for Lighthouse Reports. That was one of the outlets involved in that piece of investigative journalism. Good to talk to you. A new study says that major social media companies have ignored up to 90% of Islamophobic content on their platforms. To unravel today's findings, we've got Matthew in the Cube to tell us more.
This is the latest study that says that big tech companies like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and YouTube, it says they're not doing enough to tackle online hate. A study by the Centre for Countering Digital Hate has found that up to 89% of the anti-Muslim content and Islamophobia that they found on these platforms was not being removed, even when they flagged it and reported it to the platforms themselves. Twitter and Facebook were found to be particularly poor. According to researchers, up to 97% of the content that they found on Twitter hadn't been taken down. And they also said that they came across a number
Labour say...
I think it's very good that we've got an independent system, and obviously that requires anonymity. This is an unusual case because the Tory party knows who this individual is. I think that they should deal with it and deal with it sooner rather than later and take appropriate action.
Ministers have promised appropriate action once an investigation is finished. Meanwhile, Sir Keir said it was deeply concerning an MP who wants to remain anonymous has alleged a member of his shadow cabinet had described her as a secret weapon because women want to be her friend and men want to sleep with her. Let's be blunt, this is a strange workplace. Who is an MP's boss? Ultimately, it's you, voters. But what does that mean between elections? The current complaint system was set up 4 years ago following criticisms about how claims of sexual harassment by MPs were dealt with.
We need to bring people to account. We need to protect staff and other members of Parliament so they have an independent complaint process, but it needs to be seen to operate at pace.
And yes, loads of people here say investigations take ages, denying alleged victims and perpetrators answers and justice. And there's a broader point here, that the reputation of politics is dragged into the gutter. First Minister. Scotland's First Minister said that has consequences.
We will rue the day we make it more difficult and less attractive for women to come forward for election to public office. It is time to draw a line in the sand, and it's time for men, not all men are misogynists, but misogyny comes from men, and it's time for them to change.
For plenty, that change is not happening anywhere near fast enough. Chris Mason, BBC News at Westminster.
Well, are flying cars just a sci-fi? Company that makes them has set up a base at Coventry Airport in the UK. So our Midlands correspondent Phil Mackey went to find out more.
For as long as there have been cars and planes, someone's been trying to combine the two. This Italian model was built in the 1940s. The trouble is they've never been really practical, but now things could be about to change.
So we have to stop dreaming, and we are now at the very last stage of processing the regulations within permissions for flight with this vehicle. So it's getting so close.
The PAL V Liberty is made by a Dutch company, which is nearing the end of the long process to get everything licensed and approved. The question is, who's going to buy one? Well, they've already got lots of orders.
This is the fastest way to become a pilot. So there's always a small James Bond seat in every heart of every guy and every girl. So that's where we are selling to.
It takes less than 10 minutes to turn it from a plane to a car. You could land it at any airfield and then drive home.
If you want to buy one of these, it's going to cost you €300,000. Sounds a lot, but probably a snip if you want to be at the forefront of what they're promising will be a new motoring and aviation revolution.
You'll need a private pilot's licence, but you can learn both here in Coventry and in Oxford. There have been many false starts in bringing a flying plane to market. Next year, they reckon, is when you may see one driving along a street near you. Phil Mackey, BBC News, Coventry.
So would you get into one of those flying cars? I'd love to hear from you. You know where to find me on Twitter at BBC Karishma. Tweet me your thoughts, and yeah, are you one of the brave ones who would attempt that flight? Well, before we go, I want to show you these pictures of my colleagues at the BBC's headquarters at Broadcasting House in London, who had a royal visit earlier. Yep, no less than the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall met staff to mark the 90th anniversary of the BBC World Service, learning how the BBC is maintaining as otherwise. Well, that's it from us here at Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us for the latest headline.
Hello, if in Australia or New Zealand, they've got your forecast coming up shortly. But first, let's head to Southeast Asia. A few things of note out here, just pushing closer towards Vietnam, parts of southern Laos and Cambodia.
ก็ทำให้พัชรินชนะไป
ดวลกับซุนฟางหญิงเต็งหนึ่งรายการจากจีนนะคะลีเดียลูกครึ่งไทยรัสเซียเนี่ยนะคะก็
This is Euronews Tonight. Here are your top stories. Surveying the horrors of war, the UN Secretary-General tours Ukrainian towns ravaged by Russia's invasion and calls for accountability. Is the EU united over Russian gas a day after Gazprom cuts off Poland and Bulgaria? Some of Europe's largest energy groups plan to open ruble accounts. Russia accuses the West of openly inciting Ukraine to attack Russia, warning there'd be a tough military response to any aggression on its territory.
And social media companies are accused of failing to tackle online Islamophobia. Here in the Cube, we'll take a look at a new report. I'm Helena Humphrey. Good to have you with us. The UN Secretary-General says that war in the 21st century is an absurdity. Antonio Guterres made his remarks as he visited Ukraine to meet with President Zelensky. Earlier in the day, the UN chief visited towns surrounding Kyiv that have been occupied by Russian forces. Since their withdrawal from the region, Russia has been focusing its assault to the east and south of Ukraine. Witnessing the scale of destruction in the towns of Borodyanka, Bucha and Irpin, Guterres condemned the war and called for justice to be served.
It is vital that the International Criminal Court and other UN mechanisms conduct their work so that there can be real accountability.